Hi, this is Angie. Welcome back to A Class of Your Own. Today, we're going to talk about getting organized. There are so many resources available for every possible decision that you will make when you homeschool that it can get overwhelming really quickly. I know for myself, I have a Pinterest board with hundreds of school projects, and we've maybe done about 10% of them. My goal is to help simplify this for you, but also offer you places that you can go to get more information if you want to take a dive into the material, but to make it less difficult, less overwhelming to get started. Today, we're going to talk about 5 key things that you need to do to get organized for a class of your own. The first thing you want to do, and this is something that we've talked about before, is ensure that your homeschool program is compliant with both your local school district and your state. In our state, there's a very active homeschool lobby, and they've made sure that it's really easy to get started with your own program. I had to send a letter of intent to homeschool to our district. They stamped it, certified it, and then sent it back to me. Be sure to check the requirements in your state because we want to make sure that you and your student get the credit you deserve for your hard work. The second thing we want to talk about when we're getting organized is record keeping. And there are 2 main kinds of record keeping that you're going to do for your homeschool program. The first is a portfolio of materials and work that your student completes throughout the school year. And the second is a daily activity log. For your student's homeschool portfolio, you'll want to have a record of all the materials and activities that you've done throughout the year and all of their work. For our program, we used a combination of bins and notebooks. It's really all about what works for you. Make sure you put the date on everything. It'll make it a lot easier when you're accounting for your students' work at the end of the year. For experiential or project-based work, which I'm actually a huge fan of, you can record that activity with photos or also with written narratives that talk about things that you've done that day. The second part of your record keeping is your daily activity log. And this is going to be very important also when you show an evaluator at the end of your homeschool year, if that's something that's required by your state. And that is required in our home state. When I was homeschooling my youngest twin, who is more impacted by his autism, this is literally the way that I recorded everything that we did. This was our activity log. It's in an old lesson planner that I had, and it includes all of the different things that we did each day. Your daily activity log can be handwritten in an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document. It's really all about doing what works best for you and your family to document the activities you do each day. The information that you want to include on your daily activity log includes the date, the amount of time, the activity. If you'd like, you can include the subject. And also optional, but something that I really enjoy doing is I would include the state standards that we were exploring and using for those homeschool lessons. Eventually, I turned my handwritten activity log into a blog so that we could share it with our friends and family. And I could show off pictures of my son cooking and his Lego creations and some of the work that he did. Number 3 in getting organized is finding your place and planning your space. Students do better when they have a clean, organized space to work in. And I know when my sons were in middle school and I was homeschooling for the first time, a lot of our work took place at the kitchen table. Now, if most of your activity takes place at the kitchen table, then I will have failed in my mission because I truly believe and I've come to find that learning can take place everywhere. But you will want to have a designated place in your home where you do the majority of your planning and where your student does their written work. Now, while we're on the subject of space in your home, I want to talk about something called flexible seating. This is an option that is used occasionally in classrooms, but teachers sometimes run into problems with it. So some of them don't have the flexibility. But because you're at home, you have the opportunity to create the ideal space for your learner. Flexible seating options include things like beanbag chairs or large yoga balls for students to sit on. It might also be something like a disco sit or a standing desk. It could even mean letting your student be on the floor while they're completing their work. In my experience with my sons, whether it was homeschool or doing homework at home, Sitting still in one place for an extended period of time was excruciating. They needed to be able to move. For my middle twin, who is on the autism spectrum, he likes to get up and pace while he's working or to take a break. Sometimes he memorizes best while he's pacing back and forth, and that's something that helps him focus and helps him regulate. And when you're in a homeschool environment, you can do that. Number 4, getting organized, is creating a schedule. And we're going to talk more about this. It's going to be a little hard to set up a schedule before you know what you're teaching, but I want you to start thinking about some guidelines for your home and your family and what works for you. If you have an early bird who likes to get up early and is more focused and alert in the morning, then plan your activities around that time. For my son, when he was in his homeschool program in his early 20s, we did different activities throughout the day. He was less intent on having a very specific set schedule. And a lot of our activities revolved around meal preparation and planning. So those times of day sort of naturally became the schedule. Many individuals with autism crave structure and order in their schedule. And it's really important to get your students' input as much as possible so that they can have agency and help control what their day looks like and the times that you're working together. For number 5, getting organized, I'm going to give you some homework. This is a book called From Surviving to Thriving: Classroom Accommodations for Students on the Autism Spectrum. It was written by my good friend Jonathan Chase, who is an adult on the spectrum. Jonathan took all of his experiences as a student, all of his frustrations and the challenges that he felt in a typical classroom, and he's written this brilliant guide to help teachers better accommodate students who are on the spectrum in their classrooms. And the cool thing about this book is that it doesn't just help students who are on the spectrum, it helps all students. There are very common sense, reasonable accommodations. Now, you may be wondering, if you're teaching homeschool, why you would want to read a book about classroom accommodations. And my answer is twofold. First of all, if your student eventually will be returning to a typical classroom, this is an invaluable guide for them to help them work with your student. And secondly, I think Jonathan's book helps us as parents understand our kids better and how they learn better. Even in just the first 2 chapters, he talks about choices and control and how important those can be to the success of any program. If you have a student who feels like they are completely out of control, they may act out in ways trying to gain some control of their environment that make it really tough, not only in regular, typical classrooms, but at home. Secondly, he talks about processing differences. And this is so key. You could write a whole book just about processing differences. But once you as a parent and as a teaching parent understand how your student's processing information, it'll help you when you deliver that information, when you choose materials, and when you decide what and how to teach. Coming up next, we're going to talk about socialization.